Welcome. Oh, let me see if I can rotate. Okay. All right. All right, everyone. Sorry for the delay once again, but we got everything going like we needed to today. I'm really glad for that because this subject is something that a lot of us don't think about that much, even though we're dealing with this and we ourselves have these issues. It and it starts in the grocery store. Many of us have addictions that we are not honest with ourselves. Um, when I say the topic today is dealing with self and mental health balance, we are encouraged to treat things with medication without realizing that we're medicating ourselves in the wrong way daily. Many of us deal with a lot of stress, and for some of us, the way that we cope with it, for me anyway, I really like food. I've never met a plate I did not like. There have been a couple of instances, and it was from people who could not cook, and I did not realize. Anywho, what has become a bigger issue for the nation that we live in and all over the world, more in America than in other countries, is because the availability of cheap processed foods. We have become addicts. We are people who are others for substance abuse without realizing that the culprit could actually be what we bring to ourselves regularly. It is cheaper to get fast food than it is to grocery shop and have a balanced diet. Many people take the time to realize that there is a huge connection between what we are ingesting life every day and the behaviors that manifest within ourselves and in our children. What is seen as genetic are often things that we are consuming, and we have been consuming this through our lineage. Our families have eaten these things, and as pop culture and other things come about, and on television, the way that those programs are paid for and those actors are paid is through advertising. And advertising is in every small area. If you see a movie, those little products that are placed in order to trigger your mind to subliminally look for those things when you go to the store. And the chemicals in it causes you to crave them. We don't understand. There's a commercial for I think it's Lay's potato chips. Ooh, probably shouldn't say that out loud. Could take that back. The commercial is for a potato chip brand, and it says, "You can't eat just one." The reason you can't eat just one is because there are chemicals in it that makes you crave those things. There are certain fast foods. The reason that those foods um, that you crave them and you love them is because they have chemicals in it that bind with your body structure and the enzymes within your stomach, and goes and it triggers your mind to want those things. Well, those things are often deficient within our diet of things that we need to have a balanced diet. They've done studies, and for the people that have different mental health issues and other um, supposedly intellectual disabilities, and found the connection that they were deficient in certain things. Well, rather than that being encouraged to fix that, they're given medications that generally cause in small doses. They can be, but what I found interesting, and many people don't think about it, some do. I am in no way, let me put this disclosure out there, that I am not encouraging people not to use medication because they can be very useful. But in tandem with that, it is something that we need to do to get a nutritionalist, a physician that treats you holistically as well, so that they can test you to find out what allergies, what toxins, what pesticides are within your system so that you can get your body cleaned out. In many instances, that, in addition to finding out what vitamins that they are deficient in, has helped them to modify and improve their behavior in large ways. For me, I noticed with my children when they went from different medication to different medication that what we were dealing with was different side effects. There was one particular, both of them that had the same tick. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And some of them, if they are information to read over, but no one has that conversation with you. Well, some don't. I've had some physicians be honest and say it generally causes these side effects. If you notice this happening, this is what you can do. We'll come back. We'll see if we can adjust the medication. Um, we can look to change their medication to something else. We'll see what we can do to help these ticks or whatever is going on with them so that they don't have so many side effects that they're not really getting any benefits from the medication. Well, in many cases, because of the toxins that are built up in their system, and no one takes the time to say, this is what you need to do. They found that giving them cleansers that get rid of the toxins and stuff, and there are things that you can do to do that. Also, finding out what viruses that may be in your system. There are other diseases that causes viruses. I did not know, and a lot of people don't know. And it's something that you can talk to your doctor about. Juvenile diabetes, in many cases, is actually caused by a virus. If it wasn't something that was gestational with the mother, often and it can there are instances when it is genetic, but a lot of times the reason things are genetic is because that you're all consuming or have consumed the same products, the same foods, the same chemicals. Hair products can cause you to have illnesses. Detergents can cause you to have illnesses. I knew someone who had an allergy to food dyes. They could not have one thing that had a food dye in it. Now, many times we don't think about the fact that if we don't have a huge response to something, that we can see that you get a rash or you start itching or or you go into anaphylactic shock, or it doesn't cause immediate sneezing or your nose to run or your eyes to burn. We don't consider it a side effect. Many times, if you start to keep a journal, they tell you to do it when your child is starting solid foods, when they're born, and when they get to be about the age of 4 or 5 months, depends on your child and how greedy they may be. And if they start making chewing motions, it's possibly time for them to start a diet of some solid foods. They tell you to keep a journal and introduce foods slowly. Well, what you're trained to look for generally are physical things that start to manifest themselves that you see. Maybe they have a rash, or you see more thrush in their mouth, or they start to have stomach problems from these foods, or they develop hives. um, their eyes are watering or itchy or red. You're trained to look for those things, but we don't, unless you're a very conscious person, notice the behavioral changes in your child when they eat certain things, particularly when it's processed food, chips, cookies, even ice cream. Um, I had a friend who had an allergy to cheese, and how it manifested itself. She went to get, she hadn't really eaten cheese because it wasn't something that she loved, but she had started a diet. And so she went to a restaurant that served primarily pizza. We will not use the company name. Um, and she put cheese on her salad. She put it on there without thinking about it. She was like, well, I can't pick it off. I'm not going make another salad. I just go in and eat. It'll be fine. That night, she woke up delirious. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know where she was. She didn't realize a lot of stuff. They had to call an ambulance because she was having like a psychotic episode. But what it was she was allergic to mold. And that's how cheese is made. A lot of people don't realize that or think about it, even if it's something you love and you haven't had any experiences with that. You don't realize it. There are things in so much stuff. There are restaurants that put things in their food. I forget the proper name of it right now. Chinese food is uh, known for putting it in there, and they don't do it as much anymore. But it's something that causes you to crave it. It enhances the flavor, but it's known to also to have carcinogens. They're just coming out now and being honest with a lot of companies that have a lot of things that they make medications that have carcinogens, deodorants that cause that have things in it that can cause you to develop cancer later. And things that we don't think about when I say genetic disorders and things that we've eaten is that it gets into your blood. It binds itself to your DNA in earnest, and you pass that on to your family and not realizing that that's what that is. You can get a pesticide in your system, and later on down the line, you're wondering why your offsprings all develop cancers and things of that nature, and their offsprings. It's because of something they ingested. I had a family member tell me once that a family member that we knew that they had birth had a mental health illness because of, and this was a much older person, letting me know that because of a medication that they'd taken when they were pregnant, but at that time, they did not have any information, and they came out with the information later that it caused the children to be born with Down syndrome and other mental health issues. And as you go down the family line, you notice that other family members, not all, not everyone, but different ones had developed different mutations of it, and so people had developed mental health issues or so things that were considered. And another thing that we don't realize is that a lot of the things that they consider to be hyperactivity, actually, most people that have ADHD and ADD, as it was once called, um, are actually above intelligent. It's not really a deficiency. It is as if you've ever had an appliance that it was not wired properly, so it kept getting power surges. So what happens is it would get all this power at one time and would knock the breaker out. So that room or possibly that house, the house that that appliance was in, would like brown out the house. The house would lose power. And it kind of is that way with people who have ADHD and ADD, as it was once called. They have so much information coming at them in different directions, and they're generally, many of them are extremely gifted, extremely intelligent, but it seems to manifest itself as a learning disorder in other ways as well, besides the fact of them being extremely hyper and not being able to focus on one thing because so many things are going on. But they tend to learn differently. And I wish that, and the school is working on so many different things, but I wish there was more collaborations and conversations that are had so that we could figure out how they're learning so that we could help more effectively. Because if we continue to do what we've been doing, we'll continue to get the results that we've been getting. And there have been a lot of changes and improvements, and there's a lot of trial and error. But things are changing and things are improving. But it's important that dietary change even within the school system. What I noticed when my son was before I was homeschooling him, I sometimes pop in, talk to the teachers, and eat lunch with him. And what I noticed was they were getting more and more processed foods, breakfast and lunch. They were trying to cut the staff so they did not have plates, the hard plates anymore. They had styrofoam and they could just throw the plates away. And what people don't notice either also is that even with styrofoam, when you eat on styrofoam and you heat that up, many people don't even consider the fact that anything that you heat and it starts to melt and almost evaporate, that might be concerning for them to be putting hot food on, because what gases and what is it releasing into their meal that they may be consuming? How is that affecting them? How they preserve foods, not just the food that's been shipped to the school, how food is being marketed to the entire nation and to the world in general. Actually, we need to make the improvements so that we can have changes. Many of people often say that the behaviors that they see with children now, they did not see it during their time period. They did see some, but not to the extent that we're seeing it now. The number of children that are autistic, that are on the spectrum, the children that have many other mental health imbalances, chemical imbalances that are causing these behaviors, the number of children who are depressed is in no way a coincidence that majority of our grocery store is processed food. The average American consumes a good 70% of their diet is food that is processed. And it's so expensive to get fresh fruit and vegetables. And most of them have been sprayed with pesticides and treated with things that will, and the fertilizers that they're using are chemical based and not necessarily natural in nature. So that what's happening is it is altering how the food grows. And this is what we're taking in. So when you take in something that has been mutated, it's only natural to reason that it would mutate your molecular structure. And what needs to be done to change that? We have to make more requests. If as the consumers, don't change that, it's going to continue to head in that direction. There are natural ways to preserve things, but commercially, it is more effective for them to alter to do it in a way that would be cheaper for them, but the problems as a result are passed on to the consumer in the way of health, in the way of their mental state. It is not coincidence that you start to have more anxiety issues and things of that nature. For children who have been diagnosed as having issues with ADHD and autism, that are on the spectrum, that may have other diagnoses, bipolar, schizophrenia, it's important to have um, food therapy too. So you can start to assess what's working, what's not working, what needs to be introduced, what needs to be modified. And that's why it's important to have a nutritional specialist for your family, particularly for your children, but for yourself also, to improve your health. And so it's important that in order for us to start to feel stable, to is out in addition to getting a therapist, in addition to getting um, a pediatrician that treats children that have developmental delays. So getting a developmental pediatrician, getting a nutritional specialist, and a doctor that will treat your child holistically. And it's important that you ask them, can they do can you get blood work done on my child to see what the average is for a child that doesn't have these issues? What is their blood what are the vitamins and nutrients that are in their blood levels? What is going on with that? And compare that to what's going on with my child and their blood type so that we can see how to balance this so that you can get the improvements and not have to have so much medication. In some instances, for some children, depends on the severity of their issues, they have been able to improve their behavior and get rid of some of, if not all of the medications that they are needing day to day. Because many times you're going from medication to medication and you're trying to counterbalance that with the side effects that they're experiencing. And if they don't take their medications, how does that affect them and their house and the household? Because not only are they physically having manifestations of that, mentally having manifestations of that, it is affecting their continence and how they feel about themselves. Sometimes what's happening is they are depressed because of their circumstances, but they're also depressed because some of the medications cause it, even if it's not a noted side effect. I had an antibiotic one time that it was something new that was on the market. I think they took it off eventually, but it took my hair out. I think it was like 19 and it was coming out in clumps, and I just started taking it. And I was like, no. So I called the hospital to let them know what was going on because I was that kind of teenager. And well, I was a young adult, but I called them to let them know that this was the side effect that I was experiencing, and they let me know that this wasn't something that they noted, and I let them know they need to note it. Um, just because lots of people haven't experienced it, and they have a certain quota of people that have to experience it before they will make it known that this is a side effect that you could experience. But if only you and a handful of other people experience it, they will not make a national message of it, and they won't let lots of people know because they have this concept that if lots of people know that maybe it will be a mental manifestation and it's not actually something that's happening because that's how they feel about that particular subject and that particular matter. And it just doesn't seem reasonable that that's how they would reason that way. One of the things that helps, and they've noticed that a lot of children that have, and adults as well, that have mental health issues or attention deficit and hyperactivity issues generally have a significant deficit, with magnesium and zinc. One of the things they also they consider it important to give them is liquid electrolyte trace minerals. That's something that you can ask your nutritionist about. And so those are things that we have to consider when we are planning our meals and watching the things that we are ingesting. It's important that it's not just that we get those vegetables. Where are those vegetables coming from? How are those vegetables grown? I know personally that I'm a person that struggles with eating issues, even though I know that those things that I love to eat, they're killing me. So sometimes the things that we want, particularly in our diet and sometimes in our life, everything that we love isn't for us if it's hurting us. And sometimes you're going to have to let that go. And for me, it has been a battle because, like I said, there has not been a plate I don't like. And I have decided that I was going to start my journey in trying to, and I'll be honest, I'm dipping my toe in the water every now and again, trying to put my whole leg in and lower my body. Um, it's hard for me because I really love food. I love meat, but it has so many hormones in it, and we have in our family a lot of health issues. And because of the hormones that are in meat, because that's how they get those animals to grow faster and bigger so that they can market them and make more money. Those are the bigger concerns in the commercial world. That's what they're interested in doing, is making money. The FDA monitors how far they can go with it, but there are lots of things that they don't take an account of. And for me, I love carbs, but I can't continue to do that. It drives my sugar up. And my doctor told me I'm also because I have thyroid problems and I have cholesterol problems and heart problems. All the things that I love, I've had to change, but it's for the benefit of my family and for myself. So what I started to do is be more mindful and have days where I only eat vegetables and some days where I'll eat some protein, but very little. But I'm having to be more careful about that because my doctor was like, look, this is what your cholesterol is. This is what your lipids are. This is where you are with this. This is what your A1C is. She said, do you want to die for bacon? I've come close because I love it so much. But the nitrogen that's in the nice, I'm sorry, in the nitrogen that's in the meat, the lunch meat, I love it so much, but I'm having to get rid of it. So plant based is where we're headed. Am I saying that's for everybody? No. But if you're wanting to help your family, you have to take the time to make the adjustments that are necessary. And these things really work. Soon we'll have a specialist on here. I can't give you dates yet until I get the dates myself. We're working on some things. But we'll have a specialist who is a nutritionist who'll tell us the different things that we need to eat, what's good for us, what's not good for us, what's good for our family, the effects of different things, what happens, what you'll see, how to help your family manifest good mental health. Because though it's important to take those medications, it doesn't help if you don't do the other things you need to do to prevent the things that are worse from happening. And for me, for my family, I started to notice a change as I started to change our diet, and we're still working on it. But you have to be willing to do the work. Let go of the things that are going to be harmful to you. No matter how much you love them, you can't love yourself and hurt yourself at the same time. Everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to join me again in the room with a special agenda. I appreciate everybody that took the time out of their busy work schedule, dinner, family time, work. Be kind to each other. Show your family that you love them, not just in how we talk to each other, but how we treat each other. It's important that we're kind even if we don't feel like we're receiving it in return because it's a choice. Thank you. You all have a wonderful night. Love each other. Love you guys. Good night. Oh, God. Oh, no. Great. I'm going to send it to Facebook.